What is poppin', man? It is that time. I've been waiting a long time for this, man. I wanted to just do one mock draft, but we're going to do two. I couldn't wait. Put a lot of time and effort into it today, guys. So, what is poppin', everybody? I hope you guys are all doing wonderful tonight, man. I'm excited about doing mock draft 1.0. This is what I think is going to happen in the 2025 NFL draft. It's a tough one, man. There's a lot of different scenarios that I think would make a ton of sense for so many different teams. And, after giving it a lot of thought, I really like the way that it ended up coming out. I think that, we'll compare it. We'll compare it to see what it is that we got. But it's filled with a lot of players, man. And what I notice is I think it's going to be a very heavy draft, swayed towards a lot of different types of trades, if you ask me, my personal opinion. Because you got a lot of really talented players, but they're very specific. You don't get a lot of players in this draft that are necessarily, unbelievably well-rounded or super good at everything, but they're very, very good at very specific things. And I think it's going to fit a lot of team needs. And I think, teams' boards are going to differ quite a bit. And as a result of that, I think it's going to have a lot of movement happening all across the first round, whether it be higher up or, in the top 10 or whatever it is that it might be. So guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for joining so much. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'll try my best to get to them as soon as I possibly can. And, without further ado, man, let's go ahead and let's get into it, man. So we got our boards up. We are doing a 32 teamer, one round. And let's go ahead and begin. And guys, there's not really much here that's going to be a surprise. We're going with Cam Ward, number one. It's the pretty obvious choice at this particular point, and that's what's going to happen. But this part of the draft here, this is where I think it gets really interesting, if you're going to ask me what I think about the draft. I think right here is where it starts. I don't see a scenario, guys, to be completely honest with you, where it doesn't go quarterback. I don't think it's the Cleveland Browns that do it. I don't know if they're going to be very much in love with Shedeur, and to be honest with you, I don't really think Shedeur is going to want to go to Cleveland. At least I really hope he doesn't. So here's what I think happens. I've been kind of talking about this for a long time, but I believe that the New Orleans Saints are going to want to make a move up to number 2. This might happen before the draft. If it does, they think they're going to want to jump the Giants and not give them the decision to be able to make it. And I think here is where I don't really care about the comp. I'm going to force these trades, but I do think New Orleans jumps up to number 2 to take Shedeur Sanders, number 2. And that's going to make the Giants in a very interesting position because they have the opportunity here to, between what a lot of people consensus think are the best players in this draft, in Abdul Carter and in Travis Hunter. And after really thinking about what is it do they need, right? They could use, a weapon on offense. They could always use a pass rusher. You're never going to have enough of it. But I think in this particular case, Travis Hunter is just way too good to pass up. He's going to be able to help give a lot of juice on offense. It'll be great with, whatever the hell quarterback they got, whether it's Russ or Jameis Winston. But it's going to be able to help Malik Neighbors out as well in terms of certain packages. But he's going to be able to be a dog for them on defense in that secondary. So I think Travis Hunter is going to be the pick here at number 3. We're going to go back-to-back CU Buffs for the way that I'm starting it off here. And that's going to make the New England Patriots thrilled. Mike Vrabel and company are going to love the fact that they get Abdul Carter, which I think is a great pick for them. They've had a really good offseason. They've made a lot of big moves. Obviously, I think they overpaid, but when you're in this kind of a position, you need to. But why not continue to add strength to a strength? Give Drake May your dominant defense that you're looking for. Abdul Carter would be an absolute monster there. They got Milton Williams. They've got, I think they got Harold Landry. They got a lot of guys there. So that's going to be a hell of a tandem for them to really go after, man. They're going to be a problem. And that's a good pick for them to really build around their young quarterback. A lot of people think, got to get them weapons. You got to get them a better run game. Yes, but what we saw here in Denver with Bo Nix is that a defense is really the best friend of a quarterback. And they can address the rest of those picks later, but I really, really like that for them here. And here's where I also think it gets interesting. I don't really know what the NFL consensus right now on Mason Graham is. I love him. I think Mason Graham is an absolute stud. Don't get me twisted. But that being said, I can see a situation where the Jaguars might not necessarily feel that way. They were hoping maybe Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter would fall to them. but he doesn't. I think Mason Graham would make a lot of sense. But somebody that I'd like to see for them here is an extremely talented player. Somebody I think is the best corner in this draft. And it would be a very Jacksonville-like pick. And I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron at number 5. I feel like his versatility, the kind of player that he is, he's so good. They got a different regime there with the head coach, with Liam Cohen there. And they might really want to be able to say, hey, you know what? Let's build this team with a bunch of talented players, and he can figure out the rest. So I like Jahdae Barron going to the Jacksonville at number 5. And that's where it makes things really interesting here with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think if you look at Pete Carroll's history and you look at Spy Tech with his time in, with the Bucs, they do prioritize a very good run game, but they don't usually spend high capital on a run game. And so if the board fell just like this, I do not see a situation where they would take Ashton Genty. I think that they would probably go with, strengthening up the beef on the defensive line and going with Mason Graham. I have Mason Graham here. I could see these two picks between the Vegas Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars being flipped as well. I think Jahdae Barron is somebody that they would really, really like. But I see them saying, you know what, we can address the run game later. There's plenty of running backs. But the 6th overall pick is just too valuable, man. And Ashton Genty is a generational talent. But look at Pete Carroll's history. He doesn't like to take running backs in the first round, but definitely not this early. So I'm going to go ahead and take Mason Graham for the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think it'd be a really good pick, man. Matching up with Max Crosby on the other side, that'd be a really dominant defensive line. You've got to think to yourselves, guys, teams always draft to, offset what the teams in their division are doing. And having Mason Graham and Max Crosby would make a really, really formidable defensive line for them. And that'll help be able to get after Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix, obviously, to stop down those offenses while they figured out. And they can make do of what they're going to be able to get later on in the draft. So that's what I got going there for the Las Vegas Raiders. The New York Football Jets. Who the hell ever knows what the New York Jets are going to do? But what I'm going to do here is I am going to take what I believe is the best player available that's not a running back. And that is Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren going to New York makes a whole bunch of sense for them. He's going to be a really, really great safety blanket, an additional weapon for Justin Fields outside of Garrett Wilson, somebody that's going to be able to help a quarterback like him. Aaron Glenn likes to build this team to be very, tough and physical, but also give a lot of different looks like they had when they were when he was in Detroit. And the thing about it is, like, the Jets have pieces on defense to be a very solid defense. I think with better coaching, they'll obviously be able to add a little bit more later. But Tyler Warren is just too good for them to pick up, man. It makes too much sense. He's too versatile. He can do way too much to be able to help out Justin Fields. So I'm going to go with Tyler Warren. Now, because Ashton Genty has slid a little bit in this draft, right? This is considered a slide for him. I think teams are going to be not necessarily panicking, but really, really looking to try to get Ashton Genty. And one of the teams that I think makes so much sense for me is the Chicago Bears. So I think the Chicago Bears will hit up the Carolina Panthers and they'll say, you know what? Let's make a trade, bro. Like I said, I don't really care what the compensation is going to be. It's just a one-rounder. But I think the Bears are going to jump up to 8. They're going to jump Cleveland, who probably would have taken Ashton Genty, save Ashton Genty's career. And they're going to take Ashton Genty there at 8. I love this pick. I mean, I love this pick for them. I thought they did a lot of really good things in the offseason to be able to shore up their offensive line, which is really what they needed to do. Making a trade with the Chiefs. Here I am forgetting names as usual when I hit record. But they did some good things for the offensive line. They have 2 picks in the second round. So I don't think to jump up 2 spots, they'd have to give one of those away. They might not. They could always do like a third in the future. But those 2 picks at 39 and 41 are really helpful for them to be able to shore up and get some, other pieces that they're looking for, whether it's another weapon or maybe a defensive lineman or somebody there in the secondary. There's some potential guys there. And and it allows for them to be a little bit more risky here and go up there and get their boy. So I'm a big fan of the Chicago Bears doing that. I think it'll. I mean, you got Caleb Williams, you got Ashton Genty, you got Roma Dunze, you got DJ Moore. It's a pretty solid start. And now, like I said, you got some pretty good weapons around you to be able to in terms of the offensive line, in terms of what they've done. Joe Tooney is the guy that they brought in. And I think they might have brought in somebody else too, but they can always get another tackle, developmental guy later on. So I really like that pick there. And then here, the Cleveland Browns are kind of twiddling their thumbs. Now, they're obviously just a franchise that's in disarray in a lot of different ways. They could probably address quarterback later. They might even trade up into the upper half of the first round to be able to get their quarterback. I think it's a really big possibility. But right now, with the way that the board is falling, I just think it makes too much sense for them to be able to go with somebody on the offensive line, continue building this out. Will Campbell is a very talented player. I think you can warrant him taking him here at 9. I think it's very good value for them. He can play inside. He can play outside. They can really use him wherever they feel like they need him. And it can continue to build it out as much as they possibly can there. They accrued some extra picks by trading back. So I think Will Campbell here makes a whole bunch of sense. Which brings me over to the Panthers. Now, the Panthers here, there's two guys that really stand out to me. And a lot of the times when I do this mock draft, I try to think, what is the league doing? What is the league thinking right now, right? There's a lot of like buzz about Ted McMillan and how he's going to fall with the video and some of the attitude problems and what's his commitment level like to football. It's a really good question. And I think he would be such a good fit here for the Carolina Panthers. I also love Jalen Walker as a fit here for the Carolina Panthers as well, obviously. But I think when it's all said and done, a lot of this is going to be smoke. They want to be able to get, their young quarterback, a outside X receiver, somebody that they really feel like can be a bona fide stud for them. So I'm going to go with Ted McMillan here at pick number 10 for the Carolina Panthers. Like I said, I think Jalen Walker makes a ton of sense too, but who knows what they're going to do, man? I mean, how much do they believe in Bryce Young? I feel like they believe in him a lot. But then, you look at their head coach, you look at his history with the Buccaneers. They like to have that alpha big dog wide receiver on the outside, that Mike Evans-like guy. And so that's what I'm going to have them doing here. All right, now the San Francisco 49ers are in a very interesting position here because they had a terrible offseason, absolutely dog shit offseason. But what's really nice about them is the way that the board fell. I think everything lines up perfectly. It's just way too good of a pick for them. They need help all across the offensive line. Armand Membu, I think, is the best offensive lineman in this draft. He can play right tackle, left tackle, and he can play inside the guard. He'll probably play guard year one. And then, once here I am forgetting names. Williams, their left tackle. Once he retires, they will go. He'll be able to take over for him. Trent Williams. I think Trent Williams will be a really good kind of mentor for Armand Membu too. So really solid pick. Fits phenomenally in what it is that they want to do. Big, powerful guy, but he can work really well in that zone. And like I said, I think he could be a really good tackle as well for them one day. Which brings us over here to the Cowboys. Now, I'm not going to lie, guys. I kind of struggle with this Cowboys pick because if Jalen Walker is here, I think you've got to think about it as a really nice compliment, on their defense in terms of what they do there. I think that there's a lot of different ways that they could go. McMillan would make a lot of sense to go next to CeeDee Lamb. But I think at the end of the day, man, they need somebody to complement what CeeDee Lamb does. And even though a lot of people think, only Ted McMillan does, Matthew Golden is a perfect fit. He really is. Because you can move those guys inside and out simultaneously. They need juice. They need some players to be fun. I think Schottenheimer really wants to open it up. So Matthew Golden staying in Texas, going to play for the Dallas Cowboys, I think is a phenomenal fit. And I don't think 12 is too early for him at all. I really, really like everything about that fit for them, like I said. And they'll be able to address the rest of the defense and everything later, the interior part of that offensive line later. But he's just too good of a player to pass up there. Which brings us over to the Miami Dolphins. I always go back and forth because Malachi Starks makes a lot of sense to replace Javon Holland. And they haven't really taken offensive linemen very often in the past. And I think if Armand Membu was available or Will Campbell was available, they would do it. But because they're not, I think Malachi Starks is going to be the pick here. Help him with the center fielder. Super good player, man. He can just play. He can play all across the defense. And I think it'll be just overall, like I said, a really solid pick for them there. So Malachi Starks, Georgia Bulldog, going over to the Miami Dolphins. All right, so a really popular pick here at pick number 14 for the Colts has been Tyler Warren for the longest time. He's obviously gone. I think he's going to go earlier than pick 14. But, I mean, they don't need to really fear because Colston Loveland is very much worthy of a top 15 pick. And he might even be a little bit of a better fit in terms of what he can do as a receiver for Anthony Richardson, who really shouldn't be starting, or for Daniel Jones there as well. Tight end is a huge need. They have a lot of needs on this team, but tight end is a really, really big one. And so I love the fit. I think it makes a ton of sense to go Colston Loveland there to the Colts at pick number 14. We're going to do pick 15 and 16, and then I'll hit you guys up in the comments. I see you guys writing me in here, so thanks for that. Let me know what you guys think so far of picks 1 through 14. We'll also do a recap at that time as well once we get into it. So the Atlanta Falcons are here. And the Atlanta Falcons, let's face it, guys, they need pass rush help, man. They were awful last year rushing the passer. They need to be able to add more juice to that room. I think Jihad Campbell would make a lot of sense here as well. But ain't no way in hell. Ain't not a chance in hell. Jalen Walker is going to be available at 15 and they're not going to take him. He is a perfect fit for Atlanta. Perfect fit. You want him to be off-ball linebacker? No problem. You want him to be an edge player, which he will play a majority of the time. He can really get after the quarterback. I love the fit there. I think it just makes way too much sense for the Falcons in terms of what they need. Kind of takes care of two needs at once, almost in a way, for them to be able to help them out there. And then, I'm not going to lie, like the Cardinals are kind of in a unique position. And one of my favorite players, sometimes I just got to learn to like trust my own eyes and evaluation and what I think rather than what other people's mock drafts have. And I think right now, if the board was like this and they were looking to shore up the interior of their defensive line, they have Kenneth Grant, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon all available. I think any of them would be good picks. I think Derek Harmon's better than all of them. I really do. And I think he goes high in this draft. And going to Arizona would be a really good pick for him. It really would. Derek Harmon is just a stud, and I think he's got such a high ceiling. So I'm going to go with Derek Harmon here at pick number 16. So, guys, let's recap this before I get to you guys' comments. Cam Ward, number 1. The Saints make a trade up to get Shedeur Sanders at 2. Travis Hunter goes to the Giants. Abdul Carter going to the Patriots. Jahdae Barron cracking the top 5 going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Raiders pass on Ashton Genty. They go with Mason Graham, a move that I think actually makes a lot more sense for them. Tyler Warren going to the Jets. Because Genty's now available, the Bears jump up from 10 to 8, jumping the Browns are at 9 to get Genty. Will Campbell going to the Cleveland Browns. Ted McMillan, number 10, to the Panthers. Armand Membu going to the Niners. Matthew Golden, love that. I really love that fit going to the Cowboys. Malachi Starks to the Dolphins. Colston Loveland to the Colts. Jalen Walker. Man, the Falcons are pumped up about the fall. They get him. And then Derek Harmon is going 16 to the Arizona Cardinals. D-Rock, what up, my man? Such a legend. How you doing, bro? Hope you guys are all doing good. D-Rock says, if Carson Schwezinger falls to us in the second round, we have to make the call. Yeah, I don't think we have to, man. I think there's a lot of guys in the second round that positional value make more sense, especially if we don't take care of running back in the first round. I'm good with waiting. There's some late round, somebody like a Teddy Buchanan, that would make a lot of sense, like in the 4th or 6th round or something like that, in that range. That's what I would rather do. Andy says, I'd be very surprised if the Browns don't go Hunter at this point, but anything looks possible. You know what, man? I mean, I think you're absolutely right. Like, it would be tough for the Browns to pass up on them, but the Browns also kind of got to think to themselves, like, what position are we in? We're not going to take a quarterback here. Yeah, of course, Travis Hunter is generational, but you're just wasting everything unless you just build out and try to get as much players as you can on this team. And so if they were given a really good opportunity, especially if it got them like a future one, a couple more picks in this year's draft, I can see them being like, all right, we'll trade back and we'll just continue to build it out that way, because they're just in a huge rut. So we'll see. Well, Bika Jokic, what would Booth do? Calvin Booth would probably just do nothing, man. To be honest with you, like he would just throw a dart at a dartboard, take that guy, and then literally do nothing to help the team. I'm so happy that he's out of town. And yeah, thank you, bro. I would be a significantly better GM than Calvin Booth, guaranteed. I'd be a lot cheaper too, and it's not really saying much, because as long as I put a little bit of effort, good things would happen. So, yep. That's exactly right, man. Them poor Nuggets, bro. Them poor Nuggets. I had my Nuggets hat on earlier. I took it off because I was like, I'm just kind of a little heartbroken. Jihad Campbell would be a stud too, man. I love me some Jihad. Let's see where he goes. Let's pop this off, and we will continue it up. All right, well, pick number 17 for the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, this is one of those picks too, man, where they got to go defense. They have to. They would have loved to get Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon, unfortunately, is not available, but they get a really good player still in Kenneth Grant. I just feel like some impact defensive lineman or edge player makes too much sense for the Bengals. You know, they could really go in an array of directions, but if they wanted to make the smart move and they really wanted to be able to start shoring up that defense, they need to allocate as many resources as they possibly can on that defense. They'd be stupid to pass up on Kenneth Grant. So I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant. Another really interesting note thing to say here. We had this discussion in the Discord, me, Andy, and David, I believe. We had talked about how the Seahawks seem to be showing a lot of interest in guys like Loveland and Emeka Ibuka, and a lot of the guys that the Broncos are looking at getting. I don't know how true any of that is. In this particular case, Colston Loveland wouldn't be available. But if the Broncos did target somebody and they feared that Seattle was going to take them, the Bengals are actually a really legitimate trade back candidate, whether it's for the Broncos or somebody else, because as you know, they basically 35%, 40% of the cap is going to 3 offensive players. They need to get as much defensive help as they possibly could. And they could also use a few more assets. So they're in kind of a unique position depending on who wants to trade up. But in this mock, I have them staying put. And I have them going with Kenneth Grant. I just think he's such a disruptive player on the interior. With him or Harmon there, they'd be good to go. And he's just a stud for him. Be able to really help fill in a lot of the holes that they have there. And hopefully they can get something done with Trey Hendrickson. But if not, they can always, that this might change. They can maybe go for like Walter Nolan or somebody else, more of a edge pass rusher type of a guy. All right. Getting a little dry, guys. Weather's getting warm. It's getting dry out. All right, so the Seattle Seahawks, speaking of them, they can go in so many different ways here. The Seahawks could. I love Gray Zabel as a pick here. I think Gray Zabel would make a whole lot of sense. I just feel like at the end of the day, there's a lot of smoke with the offensive side of the ball. That they invested a lot of resources in the offense. Right, they traded DK Metcalf. It's gonna get them a nice little pick later on in this draft, that they're gonna be able to maybe stack some weapons on. I think they've got enough weapons offensively for Sam Darnold. They have to protect the guy. I mean, let's face it, you have to. And whether you're going with Josh Simmons or Kelvin Banks, or you're going with Gray Zabel, any of these guys make a whole lot of sense. And I can just see that happening. I could also see them going with a pass rusher like a Mike Green or a Donovan Ezeraku. And so this is kind of where my mind was going when I was doing the draft. So I was thinking, you know what, man, as good as Gray Zabel is, and as much as I love the fit, I think Mike McDonald just wants more juice on defense. And so with that being said, I really like Donovan Ezeraku here over Mike Green. I think he's kind of fits a little bit more about what Seattle wants to do. They just want a pure rusher. Only weakness that Donovan Ezeraku really has is that he's not very good against the run. Teams will run against him. but he's got a really high ceiling. You don't have any of the off the field questions that you got with Mike Green. He can just get after that quarterback, and that's exactly what I think that they're going to do. I think Donovan Ezraku is a really, really good fit there for them. And that leads us to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody and their mom has this pick happening with the Bucks. They have Jihad Campbell. Here's my only reservation with Jihad Campbell is what's the status of his shoulder like, right? He has offseason shoulder. He hasn't really been able to work out. That might scare some teams. I would not be surprised if Jihad Campbell falls out of the first round or gets selected in the upper end of the first round. Talent-wise, film-wise, he's worthy of being a first-round player, no doubt about it. But, man, I just feel like teams are going to be really scared of it. And I think that Todd Bowles is looking for a little bit more pass rushing juice. He might be able to get an off-the-ball linebacker later. So I'm going to go with Mike Green here from Marshall. Mike Green's a hell of a pass rusher. Like I said, 18 and 19 can be flipped in the same way with a couple other picks that we had here. But I really like Mike Green going to the Todd Bowles system. So here's where it gets really interesting, guys. If the board fell like this for the Broncos, right, there's a lot of guys that they can go. Obviously, I know a lot of people, they want Omarion Hampton to go there. Completely fine. They also, you know me, I want my Emeka Ibuka. They don't have Colston Loveland. And so things get a little bit dicey. It gets a little bit interesting here because you could trade back. I think that this is in the original, my original thought process was this is where a team like the Rams would trade up to maybe get Jackson Dart. Because I think Jackson Dart with Sean McVay actually makes a lot of sense. He's not going to play year one. He doesn't have to play year one. He can kind of groom him, and I really like that as an idea. But if the board fell like this, it would be a little bit dicey. But I decided, you know what? I still think that we should do it. I don't see the Broncos really trading back in this particular situation. But I think that the Jackson Dart, man, he just seems to really profile well with somebody like Sean McVay. And him having that year to be able to sit there and learn it and get better and watch Matthew Stafford work. I mean, for Jackson Dart, it's a phenomenal opportunity. So I'm going to have the Los Angeles Rams jump up to 20, and they are going to take Jackson Dart. Now, I'm not doing this because this is what I want to happen. If this happened in real life, depending on what we got back, I don't know if I'd want to trade back. I just want to take Ibuka and run with it. But this is what we're going to do. We're going to go with the trading back to 26. The LA Rams are going to take Jackson Dart, the quarterback that they've been targeting. It could be Jalen Milroe too, but I think Jackson Dart is a much better fit. Which brings us to the Steelers. Now the Steelers, they could be blowing smoke. I think that they like Milroe. I don't know if they love him. There's a lot of smoke out there. So crazy enough, there could be 4 quarterbacks that go in the first round, but I don't think that happens. I think the Steelers go with whom they believe is the best player available at this particular point. It's just crazy to think that Will Johnson falls this far. Now that I think about it, it is kind of crazy. And so, you know what? We're gonna switch it up here live, because if this happened, I could see the Packers hitting them up, trading up, and now the Packers are going to take Will Johnson, which is going to be an interesting scenario here because a lot of teams would think, man, Harbaugh is going to want Omarion Hampton, but I don't know. I don't know if they're going to want Omarion Hampton. I think that Harbaugh will trust in his intuition, and he will be able to say, you know what, we just need somebody that's such a disruptive defensive lineman. We're going to bet that the character concerns are not a problem. Walter Nolan fits their system super well. And so I really like the Walter Nolan pick here for the Chargers, which is what I have originally. So we're going to go with that. I did do a mock before, so I have something to reference to. I made everything the same except for that Will Johnson move up. That's something that I think was really kind of in the cards there, which makes a lot of sense if the board fell this way. And now the Pittsburgh Steelers are back up. Are they going to go with a quarterback? What are they going to do a quarterback? I think they're going to get Rodgers. It's going to buy them another year. They're just going to continue to sit in this football purgatory type of thing that they are. And they're going to go with Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton for them makes a lot of sense, man. It does, because they have Jalen Warren, and that's a really good combination of running back. Jalen Warren complements what Omarion Hampton can do very well. They'll get themselves a bruiser, a big upgrade from what they had from Najee Harris, and they'll continue to build on being a team that can run the ball well and be physical and help out Aaron Rodgers once he signs there. That's what I think is going to ultimately happen. Which brings us to the Vikings. The Vikings are another team where I can see them trading back as well. Why? Because the Vikings have like 4 picks in this draft. So, and realistically, if this happened, I would want the Broncos to trade back up to 24 to take Ibuka, because Ibuka might be gone with the Falcons. I mean, with the Texans. But man, I don't know. I think that it's one of those situations here where they would look to trade back. I'm not going to do that in this mock today. I think they're going to stay put, and they're ultimately going to go with what I think is one of the best fits in the draft, and that's Nicky Manowari. The Brian Flores defense, man, he could do so much. I really love that pick. It's a pretty common thing that you're seeing out there, but I really like that. I like that pick a lot. Which brings us to my Denver Broncos. Not the Broncos. Sorry, we're going to go with the Texans. The Texans here are kind of in a little bit of a pickle, right? They did go out there and they got themselves a temporary fix at tackle, which means that they don't have to reach for a player like Kelvin Banks. Or I wouldn't call that a reach, but they're not forced to take a tackle like Kelvin Banks or Josh Simmons. They can kind of sit back and go with best player available. And they're really, it's tough for me, man, to think about all the different ways that this can go. It really is, because I really wanted to give them, Kelvin Banks, because I like the fit there with some of the zone blocking scheme that they'll be bringing with their new offensive coordinator. But I think ultimately what makes the most sense, and this would break the Broncos' heart, but what would make the most sense for them is to take Emeka Egbuka, somebody that I just feel like fits what they're looking for. He'd be a great compliment to Nico Collins. I don't know if Tank Dell is going to play this year or if he'll come back ever the same, but Emeka can give them the versatility that they need, and they can figure out the rest of, some developmental tackles or something this season. So Emeka Egbuka is a player that would make a lot of sense. It would shatter my heart as a Bronco fan, but it makes it for a very interesting board. And if the board were to fall this way, and, we don't really have any tight ends available, we don't really have any running backs that we like at this stage available. I wouldn't have taken one anyways. You guys probably know that. You look at the interior defensive linemen, they're all gone. And this is kind of a panic situation. But you know what? I ain't going to lie. Not for me. This is a pretty easy choice for me. I would take Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver, at 26 for the Denver Broncos. If everything fell the way that it did in this mock draft, I think Sean Payton loves the player. We know how much he loves his big receivers. This guy's very dynamic. David on the live yesterday made a really good point. He does compare a lot to what DT was as a prospect coming out. He's a big physical receiver, but he's very fast and quick and elusive. He does not look like he's 6'4", 215 pounds when you're watching him. I love the pick. He'd be a great complement with Sutton and eventually a great replacement for Sutton. Bo Nix needs another weapon. This is going to be a really, really great opportunity. And if the Broncos did trade back, which I think is not, I think it's probably a pretty low chance. But if they did and they were able to pick up an additional second, maybe probably more likely a third rounder, I like that. I think it's worth trading back, even if it means you're missing out on, Egbuka and Hampton. I'm all about it, because I think Jaden Higgins is a hell of a player. Which brings us to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens love their pass rushers. I think James Pierce Jr. is somebody that is pretty underrated in this draft. And he's such a Ravens player. He'd be really, really good for them. And this is another pick that I really like, and that's Jihad Campbell going to the Lions. It's a need for them. He fits the DNA of what it is that they're doing. He could bring a lot of toughness to the middle of that defense. They were obviously ravaged last year by injury, but I love Jihad Campbell. And especially I like him going to the Detroit Lions. It's a really good fit for them. And they're in a position where they can take an off-ball linebacker and go with a little bit of a less valuable position because of how good their roster is overall, which stops the fall of the one and only Shamar Stewart. I do think Shamar Stewart is the player that is going to fall quite a bit in this draft. I would not be surprised if he's available at pick 29 for the Commanders. But I think Dan Quinn banks on his ability to have guys be able to fit into his system, which he's proven that he can do. And Shamar Stewart's got crazy upside. This can be one of the biggest steals of the draft for the Washington Commanders by getting Shamar Stewart there. And yeah, I mean, I just like the fit overall and be able to bring a little bit more juice to their defense. They could also go with a corner here. I just didn't like, Revel enough or Maxwell Harrison enough to be able to take them there. And then this is the part of the draft, guys. Every single year, somebody gets drafted between like 28 and 32 that nobody thinks is probably going to be a first-round pick. And so I think that's what happens with the Buffalo Bills. The only reason Darius Alexander is probably not going to be taken in the first round, or a lot of people are thinking that he's not, is because he's a little bit older prospect. He's 25 years old, right? He'll be 25 his rookie season. But the good news about the Bills is that their championship window is very short. They have a 3 to 4 year window probably. They got to go get it. I don't think they care as much about the age. Darius Alexander is freaking dynamic, dude. He's a good player, man. Long, a lot of experience. He's been good every single place that he's gone. And they could use a little bit more help across the entire defensive front. It's going to help them continue to bolster their run-stopping ability. But Darius Alexander, man, it just seems like a Buffalo Bills type of player in the first round at pick 30. Which, fortunately for Gray Zabel, makes somebody like Gray Zabel available for the Chiefs. The Chiefs need help across the entire offensive line. They could take a tackle here. Josh Connerly Jr., somebody that makes sense. But, bro, they're going to take Gray Zabel. He's too good. He can be an all-pro guard, I think, or a center. But he could also play tackle, I think, if needed to in the NFL. So they'll kind of see where he fits. But he's too versatile. He's not falling out of the first round. And that leaves another Georgia Bulldog that I believe is going to go to the Philadelphia Eagles. They love their Georgia Bulldogs. Mykel Williams is really good value here. I just think it's such an Eagles pick. And I have them going. I really did, want to have a situation where a team traded back up and took a quarterback here. I don't know if there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in this draft. And none of the situations really made a lot of sense. So that's going to wrap it up here with my mock draft 1.0. Let's go to the comments, see what you guys think. Come on. Artur Amaral. What's going on, Artur? He said Will Johnson to Denver at 20. Oh. I wouldn't hate it, man. I wouldn't hate it, but I definitely wouldn't love it. I don't know. I mean, I think we could use more cornerback help. I don't know if I want to use a first-round pick on one. So, Jahdae Barron, I would say yes, because Jahdae Barron can be your starting slot, and we play a lot of nickel. You saw how much Jaquan McMillan plays. You swap him out, and then if there's injuries or somebody needs to, Riley Moss goes down or you need to fill in for PS2 or whatever, Jahdae Barron can do that. Jahdae Barron is probably the only corner that I would consider at 20, in my opinion. Judson, it's snowing out there in Maine. Yeah, we just had snow all last week here. April and May are pretty snowy months in Denver, but stay safe, man. Stay warm. Hopefully it'll get warm there soon. That would be awesome. T. Fisher says it's crazy if Denver passed on Will Johnson and Jihad Campbell. I don't know if Will Johnson will fall that much. I just kind of have a feeling that he will, because of just some other guys being pulled up. Jihad Campbell, it wouldn't surprise me. He's purely an off-ball linebacker, and albeit a very good one. But off-ball linebackers aren't as highly touted as other positions. So I think that in and of itself can make him fall. Plus the fact that he just had surgery very recently. He hasn't been able to do any of the off the field stuff or on-field stuff. I think that I could see a situation where Jihad Campbell absolutely falls. Now, if he was available at 20, I think you'd be really tempted, man, because a Jihad Campbell, Dre Greenlaw would be a hell of a tandem at inside linebacker for the Broncos. I would like that more than Will Johnson at 20, to be honest, because I can see a vision for two absolute dog of players. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jihad Campbell was somebody that fell. So let me know what y'all think, man. I'm going to post this on my Twitter feed as well, so you can always go back and reference it. And I just like to do it to see, where was I right? Where was I absolutely wrong? Did I have anything that I was, kind of on the right track with, or was I just completely off the mark? So I'm going to do my last one the day before the draft, maybe even the day of the draft. It's either going to drop the Wednesday before the draft or Thursday morning of the draft, because things can change, man, between now and then. I just have a feeling. Obviously, I have zero sources because I'm just a part-time YouTuber and have a full-time sales job. But I just have a feeling that there will be a move up to pick number 2 or 3 or somewhere in the top 5 to maybe try to make a play for a quarterback before the draft even starts. So we'll see. Anyways, guys, thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. T-Fishes, Justin Cake, Artur Emerald, D-Rock, Andy, all the dudes. I appreciate all you guys in here. Thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. And until the next video, y'all stay safe and peace out. Oh, yeah, and screw Calvin Booth.